and welcome to the Hockey Hub. It's Sophia and Kasey. Happy Monday, everyone, for episode number 82. Ooh, okay, almost at 100, Kasey. We got to celebrate that when that comes, hopefully by September. But anyway, happy Monday, everyone. We've got, even though it's summer, the dog days of summer, we kind of do have a jam-packed show. I think we're finally going to get to something we're calling the Mailbag. We've been promising, we've been doing that. That's when you guys comment on the pod or on wherever you're watching it, have a thought about what's going on with the Boston Bruins and the upcoming season, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to answer it. So we're going to get to the Mailbag. We have Ryan Bourque coming on the show. He is the newest assistant coach for the Providence Bruins, so we're going to talk about his trajectory, his journey, and obviously he's going to have some insight on some of the Bruins prospects, so we're waiting for him. Case, we're going to have him, and we'll also talk about the Bruins schedule. It was released last week, but we didn't have a show, so it was released after our show, so we're going to talk about that, and maybe some of our skating shenanigans. Kasey, do you want to start there?
I think we start there until we get everything else moving along.
Yeah, so on the weekend, so Kasey, you've been taking skating lessons, and we're not talking about the basics, you know how to skate, but this is like edge work and stuff with a coach at Warrior.
The hockey fundamentals.
The hockey fundamentals. You invited me to go, and I went out the night before. Was struggling. Like I want a take two on that, because when I got off, I was like, oh, okay, my hands are still shaking.
I was gonna ask if you had the shakes.
I had the shakes. I had the shakes in my legs. I had the shakes. I didn't know I needed more waters. I needed more sleep, but I did enjoy it. But it's hard.
It's crazy, and that's why I became so addicted to it. I mean, I think I've told people a number of times that there's a level of adrenaline junkie to my lifestyle, but yeah, like as we got a chance to do on Saturday, it's just like the amount of layers that Sasha unpacks as she's breaking it down and all the different things we have to do. I was just like, wow, like, there's a journey ahead, but it's exciting. So it was definitely something. What do you like most?
I was talking to, I'll answer in a second, but I was talking to some of my guy friends who've been playing hockey their whole lives, and I was just letting them know about the lessons, and then they were bringing up, like, did you have to do like outer edge work? And I was like, yes. And they're like, isn't that crazy? Like, they're great skaters, but then when they started really learning edge work, they're like, I don't even think about that when I'm skating. Like, I'm like, what do you mean outer edge? Have I ever even used that in my life? So it made me feel better, because I felt like I was like, am I an idiot? Like, do I even know how to skate when I was doing this? But no, it is super challenging. Like, I was asking Sasha, the coach, you can rip it around, and I do when I'm back at home in Toronto.
You can move, you're fast.
Well,
I
mean,
like you're fast on skates.
I'm not, but I realize I'm a terrible skater if I can't do what seemed very basic, like edge work. But yeah, you can rip around with the stick, and when I play shinny, you feel like you're good. You're like, I'm great. And then you start doing something like that, and you're like, have I even ever skated before? My favorite stuff, I don't know. I do really like learning, and so just being challenged. I think the outer edge work was really hard for me because my knees kept buckling in. Like, I think I feel safer on the inside edge, which I think outside edge versus inside, I think everyone does.
She was saying because you have forgiveness on your inside edge.
Yeah.
So if you lose your balance, then you can kind of move your feet to get back underneath you. But outside edge, it's like, if you're going down, you're going down.
Yeah. Okay, so both of us were without a helmet, and then we were without hockey pants.
No hockey pants.
No hockey pants, no hockey equipment. I think I'm definitely going to be bringing that next time I go, just so that I feel like if I'm falling or what, I mean, whatever.
If you're gonna eat it, then
the
you're
ice hurts.
Fine with it.
Yeah, the ice hurts, and we were sharing the ice with some figure skaters who had those butt
and we were
pants
watching
on.
other people going down.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple falls, which kind of gets to you sometimes. Yeah.
I'm investing in some padded butt pants for sure, because that's gonna help.
Please show up with those next time. I'll wear them too.
We might get into this a little later on, but first, our guest is ready. Ryan Bourque, newest assistant coach of the Providence Bruins, joins us on this Monday morning. Ryan, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate it. Congratulations on this newest job for you. I kind of want to start with the process, the journey. If you want to get into details about, I'm always so curious about how coaches interview and who you have to meet with, and what kind of things you have on your resume, because it's obviously Googleable, but what are you kind of showing in an interview? Why don't you take us through the process and up until when you finally got hired?
So it was pretty unexpected, to be honest. It was probably about halfway through the spring. I was at Cushing, and I think the hockey world in general, a lot of it is just kind of through the grapevine, word of mouth. And I was aware that Matty Thomas was leaving Providence and, going on to college at a place where that was his alma mater. And, Dustin Stuck, who's actually the trainer for the Bruins, and his father was still is longtime trainer with the Hershey Bears, and got to know Dusty growing up. And he just reached out and said, would you have any interest in going through the process with Providence? And, that's kind of a loaded question for me. It's an obvious dream come true to get the opportunity to work for the Bruins organization, and an organization that I grew up being fortunate enough to go witness firsthand kind of what a day is like being in that organization. And, it was a pretty easy answer for me. An opportunity like that, absolutely, I would be willing to go through the process. And I think in 2025, it's a little different now than it used to be, but it was basically just 2 Zoom interviews. And then I think the process itself was, a little longer than I anticipated. But, a night after the draft, I got the call from Evan, who was unbelievable through the whole process in terms of communication and transparency. And he offered me the position, and, that was a pretty good night, to say the least.
Well, congratulations, and I'm glad it's a dream come true. I feel like guys who have former playing experience, it's becoming more popular for them to get into these coaching positions to really speak to the development of guys. So what would you say that you pull from your previous experience that you really want to stand out for your coaching style to add to this Providence Bruins team?
So I think for me as a player, I was fortunate enough, to play in a ton of leagues, but also experience, growing up in diapers, being able to go to the rink. And, as I got a little bit older and was able to process, seeing what these guys who are the best at what they do treat every day like. And I think growing up with a Hall of Fame father, I was 10 years old when he retired. So I think a lot of kids that had dads that were successful in the NHL, a hard part of that is when they're on the road and when they're traveling. And, it's awesome to be able to experience those things, but you don't get as much alone time with, with your father that I'd say a kid that has a dad that's, working from home. So when I was 10 years old, he retired. And from then till, I was 15, we were inseparable and kind of attached at the hip. And I think those are the years that I was able to retain, so much in terms of the lessons and, just the father-son time that was very valuable and very special to me. So I was soaking everything I could like a sponge. And to go along with that, he was able to coach me at those ages. So, playing youth hockey and then going to prep school and then being fortunate enough to go to the national program. I was committed to University of New Hampshire, and it was a super tough decision with Dick Umili there and how great he was with me. But I decided to go to Quebec City and play in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. And I spent 2 years there. It was a great experience with Patrick Waugh, who was one of my dad's former teammates and close friends. And then from there, I was drafted by the Rangers, and I spent about 5 years playing in Hartford with their minor league affiliate. Spent some time with the Rangers as well, which was an incredible experience. And then I bounced around to different organizations after that, being Hershey, Bridgeport, and just finishing 4 games in Charlotte. So definitely touched a lot of leagues, got a ton of experience, but also in terms of the position that I'm in right now, I was able to grind in the American League for almost 10 years. So I know what it takes to get to that level. And even being a leader in the American League when I was playing, there was so many different prospects coming in and out. And as you kind of graduate in the American League from prospect to veteran to kind of on your way out, you experience all the different realms of pro hockey. So I think that really benefits me going into my new position with Providence in terms of helping these guys do what it takes and learn the the intangibles, not only on ice, but off ice. It's a grind, and, it takes a lot to get to that ultimate level, and that's what I plan on doing.
I know a lot of the guys we've had on our show, or just even when I'm in the Bruins room, and by the way, so much to take from your answer over there. I want to touch on a couple of points, but they talk about you always have respect for your leaders or your coaches, but when someone's been through it, it just helps so much more with that communication style. Just want to bring up something you mentioned about your dad retiring when you were 10. Even Patrice Bergeron, when he retired, his kids were really young, but four of them, and he's like, I'm missing out on so much. It's time to be home. And he was at that age, and obviously he's getting closer with them. So wanted to touch on, you said you really learned a lot from him there in terms of what you're going to apply to your coaching style. Was he ever vocal about what worked for him? And we know the league has changed since he was in his prime, and coaching has changed. Now it's more of what they're calling a players league, and communication is becoming more and more important, like real direct communication. But did he ever give you tips or stories about what coaches he got along with and what their style was? And can you apply that to what you're going to be doing?
For sure. That's a great question. I think, so much of what you retain is kind of in those little moments, like just those car rides from, our house to hockey practice, and doing that on repeat for however many practices you have in a year. And just those little conversations where, you're 10, 11, 12, and you're just glued to those answers, and it's kind of spontaneous and almost just organic, where some of the best information and some of the best little tidbits are just in natural conversation. So I think in terms of what I took from my dad, when he played, even afterwards when he coached me, it's maintaining balance, never being satisfied, but also just being even keeled with it. Like, you're never going to be perfect, and that's okay, but it's okay to strive for that every single day and trying to get the most out of each and every day. I think you're exactly right. This generation is kind of transitioned into, you have your old school mentality of the way things used to be, and then there was kind of this little hybrid for a point in time. And now I think nowadays the kids, they want to have an opinion and they want to be heard, and that's okay. That's good. That means they're curious. That means they want to help be a part of the solution. And I think communication is just so key, and just getting to know the players on a personal level, not just, trying to get to know the hockey player, but get to know the person, figure out, things that work for them, things that don't work. And, our job is to coach them. So no matter how, or no matter what it takes, to get them to understand, just being able to be patient with that, and also letting them have a voice, letting them, be a part of the solution.
I think it's huge that the league is now finding ways to let players have a voice, especially younger players. You're seeing them speak out more and kind of like vouching to have playing time earlier, and that kind of speaks to the development and the development timeline. Have you seen a change in development timelines in players, or is there a change that you would like to see when it comes to getting a player ready to take that next step? Because you talked about witnessing the grind and your own experience in the AHL, and a lot of players that are younger now kind of want that opportunity and that chance sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think for sure. But it's a little strange. Like, it's taking longer to get there. But once they do get there, they've gone through a lot of what it takes to be able to make an impact right away. So I think you look at college hockey and how much less you're seeing true freshmen able to, make an impact right away. And I think the way things are changing through junior hockey, the way things are changing through development, in your teenage years, I think you're having a longer runway when it comes to development. And I think when you're ready to turn professional, like even rewind 10, 15 years ago, the amount of kids that are signing early out of college, or even junior when they're 19 years old, they're just not ready for it. But I think this way, it allows them more of a runway to, mature as a person, as a kid, and also get the development on ice that they need in order to make an impact right away. And it's okay to have a voice. Like, every kid is going to believe in themselves. And, I think not a long time ago, but there was almost a notion that you need to earn your stripes, you need to pay your dues. If someone's prepared and ready to make an impact right away, then why not give them that opportunity?
You have some experience, from what we understand, correct me if I'm wrong, with James Higgins and Will Moore in the U.S. national development team when you were there and they were there at the same time. Bruins fans very excited, like to Kasey's point, Bruins fans want to see these guys sooner, but obviously the team wants to play it right. We talked a lot on the show about a player's personality. If they're innately confident, then if they get called up and down, it might not rock their confidence if they keep getting up and down. But if someone isn't, if someone's a little insecure or not feeling good about their game, they get called up and down. That can kind of slow down their development. So you really got to play it out person to person. But do you have any insight on those two guys and what they can eventually, if they make it, bring to the Boston Bruins?
Yeah, for sure. I coached James in Plymouth with the U.S. under-18 team. Got to know him a ton. He was, it was a great team, and they were all unbelievable. I was kind of the buffer. I was the second assistant there, so I was in the locker room with the guys. My stall was in there, so I would, put my skates on and go out and practice with them. But I really had a firsthand look at the entire locker room, so it was a super cool experience for me. But was just enthralled with James's performance, that year. I think he's a charming kid. He's super popular in the room. He's motivated every day. He's one of those kids that he goes out there and it's like he's going on the pond every single day. It's just a natural detail in his game through practice and then in games as well. I think when he was playing his best hockey that year, it was the most important times of our season. I think the under-18 tournament in Finland, it was some of the best hockey that I've seen at that age level. And I think he's the type of kid or the type of player that he has the puck the entire game, but he's not a selfish player. When he's playing at his best, he does possess the puck for a good majority of the game, being a centerman, but he distributes so well, and he's almost faster when he has the puck. Just his puck handling ability and the ability to be aware of everything that's going on in the ice. He's a super special player, and I think the situation with him being at BC, I was watching the draft, and as those picks got closer and closer to Boston's pick, he was still available, and selfishly, I was hoping that we'd be able to get him, and as luck would have it, we did. And as far as William Moore goes, he was on the under-17 team, so I didn't get the chance to coach him, but those two teams are together all the time at the rink every day. So just in conversations and getting to know him off the ice, he's an incredible kid. And, just as a fan and observing games throughout the year that the 17s were playing, he's a super special player with some definite offensive upside, and another familiar face that we'll be seeing in Hockey East at BC. So they'll get the chance to play together, and hopefully that can continue through the next decade.
Hopefully. Sophia mentioned eager fans, and of course a big topic that's been going on since draft night is when we will potentially see Higgins in a Bruins sweater. But more importantly, you talk about him being charming, and attached to his name, they talk about how well he weathers pressure on the ice. But have you seen leadership tendencies out of Higgins that just will translate off the ice as well, that Bruins fans will have to look forward to?
Yeah, for sure. I think, leadership comes in so many different ways, and I don't know if James is necessarily the type to just voice up in the room and make a statement that way. But I think just the way he attacks each and every day through practice, through games, and just taking charge when he needs to take charge. I think leadership is kind of a maturation process, similar to your game, but as you get older, you kind of fill into the type of leader that you're going to be. And I wouldn't say that James is like an alpha by any means, but he is always going to do the right things for the team. And, like I said, he's a gamer. His best hockey comes out when it matters most. And I think that's a super special quality to have.
I'm so excited about your read on these guys, just like hearing what you've said. And obviously they've grown since, and they're going to continue to grow. But this is very exciting intel that you're giving us. I want to ask you a little bit about Ryan Mujanel. Your head coach with the Providence Bruins. I've known him for a little bit since being with the organization. He's such a riot. In Canada, you know the cliche, we call someone like that a beauty, so he's a real beauty. And he's just a big jokester, but I know obviously he takes things very seriously, but he's very well known as a coach that players absolutely love. How well did you know him? How well do you know him? And what do you think your relationship with him is going to be like once you start?
So going into the interview, I think we met 2 previous times at kind of just coaches panel things. But as you know, the world of hockey is so small, and in terms of what I've heard about him, similar to that, I think there's a really good balance to, having a good time and also being serious, like you said, when it's game time. And I'm just super honored and just really looking forward to being able to learn from him each and every day. I think in pro hockey, similar to when I was playing as an extension of the coaching staff, being a leader, I think that's where you can soak the best information is just in the daily habits and the day-to-day. So I think to be able to be a part of this organization, that's what excites me most, to learn from Muj every single day, and also Trent Whitfield. And, every staff needs to be collaborative, and I think bouncing ideas off one another and just trying to find a solution is where you improve and where you get better in the day-to-day. So I couldn't be more excited to go to battle with those 2 every single day, and I just really look forward to it and can't wait to get going.
I think Casey's got a question for you, but a quick comment. We had Muj on our show, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and he started the show we were like, hey, thanks for your time, and he was like, leaning in, pretending to be joking. He's like, you guys are getting me out of yard work, so go as long as you want. That's how he started the show. And I'm like, yeah, this guy's the best. He's a good time. And I know it's different when, someone's a bench boss and they got to be serious once in a while, but seems like a joy to be around. Casey, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. A lot of personality. I was glad I got to meet him through you. I mean, to that note, any players you're excited to work with? Because I think that's something that's so spectacular about the AHL that we actually talked about beforehand is just like you've got guys who are working so hard to take that next step, but it's just as important to get those reps at the AHL level. We saw some of these kids get opportunities towards the end of this season. So any names that jump off the page for you?
Yeah, I think that, you always, and being out of the American Hockey League for, about 5 years now, I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to coach in the East Coast Hockey League with South Carolina. But you're always looking at past seasons. And I think if you look at both Providence on paper, but also what they were able to do in the playoffs, taking Charlotte to 5 games, and that's the team that's in the finals there at the end. So they're right there. I think the way that Muj and Witter, prepares them, and it's funny because when I played in the American League, Providence would always be the same way every year, and it was they'd start out kind of even keeled on flat line, and then by February and March they were always going up and being ready for playoffs. So I think that's a really good trajectory. I think that's a really good way to pace out your season, and you always want to be playing your best hockey come April. And in terms of the prospects, I think there's a ton of players that are going to be coming in from college, and a guy like Bancroft and Poitras. Hopefully he's in Boston and succeeding up there. But a player of that caliber and a player of that talent, to get the opportunity to even be a small part of that would be awesome. But like I said, I think he's got a trend line that's going to be a long time NHLer. So we'll see what happens with that.
All right, before I give it back to Soph, I'm going to do a quick little Hockey Hub coaching test. Sophia and I skated this weekend. Do you have any tips for us to ride our outside edges without completely wiping out?
Because it was hard. It was really hard. We're learning edge work, and I did not like it, okay? It was not
Help
good.
us.
Really humbling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got some of the chairs for my two boys. I got a 2 and a 4-year-old, and it's actually hilarious. Like, I've coached hockey now for not a crazy long time, but for 5 years, and I cannot teach my two boys how to skate. Like, I don't even know where to start. And in terms of the on ice drills that I'm doing with the teenagers this past year, like when it comes to edge work and trying to teach them the basics and the fundamentals, it's super challenging.
It is.
Wild.
It is. I mean, I think at that age, just give them a puck and a stick and let them chase and battle it out. I mean, I know 2's still a little wobbly. Maybe they can do the edge work a little later. But, like, yeah, dude, for a almost 40-year-old woman, it was very humbling for me to be like, what the heck? Am I even good? Have I even been on skates before? We want to let you go, but I have one more to wrap, and I just want to kind of bring the interview together, the whole thing together, everything we talked about. You talked about your experience in Boston with the Bruins organization, obviously your father's and the impact he had and still has here, coaching, leadership, relationships, all that I want to tie into something I learned. I've only been in Boston for 6 years, but just how important the community here is and how important it is to give back and to just be part of it. That's something your father's still doing, you guys are still doing with the Bourque Family Foundation. So is that something that you're going to instill in some of the younger guys, just to teach them that, like, hey guys, it's not just about being good players on the ice, but being good character people when you're out in the world as well? Is that part of your coaching regimen? And can you explain to the fans how important that is?
For sure. I think, when you're playing hockey at the level that some of these guys are playing at, it's a privilege. And I think you have the opportunity to reach an audience and really influence the community in a way that is so positive. And that's something that, was instilled in all three of me and my siblings from a young age, from my mom and my dad. And even, my dad was captain of the Bruins for such a long period of time. And, that's a full-time job in itself, but it's also a responsibility and a privilege for my mom. And I think, what they were able to do in the community here in Boston, and even after his retirement with, the charity work and now having our own Bourque Family Foundation, it's super important to us. And I think the coolest part of that is being able to extend that to the generations. And now we all have kids and they're a part of those events. And even when I was playing in the American Hockey League, I always tried to make it a point to make a difference in the community that I was in, whether that was Hartford or Bridgeport. You can make a difference. I just remember all the Christmas visits to the hospitals and the cool events that were planned. Listen, you go to the rink at 7:30, 8 o'clock, you're out of the rink by 12 or 1, and then you have the rest of the day. So you got to fill those days up with things that make a difference. And that's definitely something that I plan on harping on in Providence. And, it's a special privilege that us professional athletes and coaches have.
Well, listen, based on not only that answer, but everything you've kind of said today, one, we're very excited that you're going to be part of this Bruins organization, the Providence Bruins' newest assistant coach, and no doubt that your resume on and off the ice and your character will bring a lot to this team. So congratulations again, and maybe we'll check in you kind of mid-season. But for now, hope you have a good summer preparing, and we'll check in a couple of months. But Ryan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, guys. That was a blast.
Awesome. Best of luck. We're going to send it to break over here on the Hockey Hub. Kasey and I will be back to discuss the Bruins schedule, which was released earlier in the week or before the weekend. We'll talk about that, some other things right after this. So much to look forward to in the off season of hockey, even though that doesn't sound like it's a weird thing to say. But, you know, the draft was very exciting, and then free agency. But then after that, it's like the little things. And for me, because it dictates my whole life, it's the schedule. I like seeing when the schedule is like, when can I book a concert? When am I working? When can I sleep in? When can I breathe in? When are we on the road? So that was released by the NHL. The NHL entire schedule is released 25-26 season earlier in the week, but it was after our last show. So in case you guys didn't dive in, we're going to get into the details. But first, Kasey, someone very well known all around the world, actually, and to the Boston community is Bill Burr. And he had his take on the schedule. So let's play that first.
Hey, what's going on? It's Bill Burr, and it's that time of year. The Bruins are releasing their 2025-2026 NHL schedule. We got I'm going to put my glasses on so I seem smarter. We got a new coach, perfect name. Dude, we got Marco. We're going to be fine. Supposed to highlight a few games here. We got the original 6, some games coming up here. The home opener is against the Chicago Blackhawks, one of the original 6 teams of the NHL. You ever been to Chicago? You see how fat those people are? They should put them on skates. And then who we got? November 11th. Oh, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. Are they still doing it this year? Every year. You know, they give it the try. Every year, the Toronto Maple Leafs remind all of us that, you know, you're not too old to try. You know they're going to sign a bunch of free agents. That's what they do every offseason, just putting rims on a Prius. November 11th and March 24th, you can watch the Leafs go out to a big lead against the Bruins and then blow it. Be exciting for you and your son or daughter. 11/28, they have the November 28th, they got the New York Rangers. You know, they're good for a Stanley Cup once every 85 years. 12/18, oh, here we go. Edmonton Oilers. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. One of the greatest push-pull names in the NHL. Leon Draisaitl. 12/23, right around Christmas. You know, there's always that one relative that always comes around and ruins the holidays. Well, this year for hockey fans, it's the Montreal Canadiens. And it's not really the team, it's their fans, you know, with their loafers and their little pocket square. Les Bleu Blanc et Rouge. How about Les Bleu Blanc? That's 12/23, 2 days before Christmas. February 1st, they got the Tampa Bay Lightning, which in my world is still an expansion team. You know, for some reason you want to go down and, that's the outdoor one down there in Florida. You can dodge a bunch of alligators and watch people play hockey outside next to a big pirate ship. I think I was supposed to sell that game a little harder. And then, the big babies of the NHL. March 1st, the Pittsburgh Penguins celebrating at least 20 seasons of stay away from Sydney as they sign every leg breaker in the league. All right, that's it. Let's go, Bruins. Here we go, Bruins. Here we go. I'll see you there.
I love him.
Okay, so funny. I wanted it to be funnier. I think like he got some of the descriptions correct around some of the teams. Some. We'll get to the ones where I'm like, come on, Bill, be better. But yeah, I mean, there we go.
I laughed out loud the whole time when I saw it, so I thought it was hilarious. I mean, for me, he went off on Toronto being like, are they still doing it? Like, I thought that was so cute it was funny because it is the stereotype that they try, they're going to get a lead, then they're going to blow it against the Boston Bruins. I thought if the Bruins did make the playoffs this year, I was like, this could be Toronto's year to knock them out if they were going to face each other. But anyway, yeah, they're still doing it, Bill Burr. I thought he was hilarious, and the whole Tampa thing, I know maybe maybe it's a sore spot, but he's like, oh, you're gonna watch some hockey next to a pirate ship. I thought he was great. And then he was like, oh crap, like that's the Stadium Series. He's like, I think I'm supposed to be selling that a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then he did say, see you there. I've yet to see him at a Bruins game. Like usually the Jumbotron or whatever we're calling it, we are focusing on the celebs that are there. Yet to see Bill Burr. So please, sir, please come by the Nesson Studios if you do go, and we'll have a chat. But anything else you want to highlight from him, or should we just jump into the schedule?
I think after doing the schedule release, he now has to show up to a handful of games this upcoming season, not just one. He needs to show up to a few of them. Actually, each one that he named, especially versus the expansion.
Yeah, go to this Tampa Stadium Series, the expansion team. He didn't mention because it's not highlighted in there, but there's going to be a big break because the Olympics are coming. So I didn't count yet. Normally the Bruins have actually, I wish I did count, but a handful, I would say at least 10. And this is like league wide. I think there's a rule, but back-to-back games. But with this Four Nations tournament, that was a good way to test it out in terms of the break.
Right.
So we're going to get some back-to-backers. You're going to get a lot of 4 games in a week instead of 3. I haven't counted how many the Bruins have, but all teams are going to be going through that for the Olympic break. So that's in that schedule. Any games, Kasey, or which games, I'm sure some, are jumping out to you?
Actually, I feel like October is going to be pretty loaded for them to get going on.
Yeah.
At the Lightning on the 13th, Travis Thomas tried to sell me out and say that I called my former team Charmin toilet paper in comparison, but I'm excited to see that matchup, of course, because of just like the home ties and like the expectation of what this Bruins team could potentially be, getting back to their defensive form and then having these, highly invested in bottom lines in the third and fourth lines. So I think it'll be a fun matchup because these two have always played each other quite tough. It got super physical each time they faced each other last season. And then outside of that, the Mammoths. I mean, they're a super young team and they did really well, I think, with their off-season pickups. So I think it's going to be interesting to see the non-Utah Hockey Club now come and compete with a semi-young and just kind of like re-identifiable Bruins roster.
Okay, I have circled, but of course I had the experience of getting to know these guys. I've circled every game that former Bruins are coming back. First one being Brad Marchand. Obviously, I think that actually is the first one. Yeah, so October 21st, Brad Marchand and the Panthers are going to be at TD Garden. And I think that's just going to be very emotional. It's going to be a bit annoying in the media because I think like Pasta and McAvoy and Sway and even Zadorov, even though he only played with them for a year, they're going to be asked like, what does it mean? Is it awkward? Are you going to shake his hand? Are you going to look at him at warm-ups? Like, what do you think? Did you have dinner? Like, these are annoying questions, but it is going to happen once, and like, I think they're going to have dinner. I mean, I think it's just the stories that are going to come out of that, how emotional he's going to be now that him and Katrina and the kids are probably in the middle of moving down and finding a place in Florida. So that's a big one. October 21st. I'm glad it's happening early in the season. Brandon Carlo also, just a couple weeks after that, was a big part of the Bruins organization. Obviously, he's with the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Leafs, that's going to be Leafs at Bruins, excuse me. So that is going to be at the Garden. And then he being Bill Burr, mentioned Joe Sacco, or he mentioned the New York Rangers in a matinee. That's a very big game. Right after Thanksgiving on Black Friday. That's a game that the Bruins and Rangers usually face off in. And then Joe Sacco, who was the interim head coach and assistant coach for many seasons, is an assistant coach with the Boston Bruins. So with the New York Rangers, he's going to be back. And I'm assuming the Bruins are going to do video tributes for all those guys and Charlie Coyle, Trent Frederick, Jim Montgomery. I wonder how that's going to go down. I think great relationship, like especially with the players he coached, but in terms of video tribute, I don't know.
I don't know if I've really seen a video tribute for a coach, unless like they were
been a
around
couple,
a
but, like,
milestone to a degree.
Yeah, when they're like decades or whatever, really long time. But the Marchand one is going to be very, very interesting. And something I want to point out, since I've been with the Bruins, so that's 6 years, they always play on the 23rd and on the 27th. And I've had like a bone to pick with the league because you get the 24th, 25th, 26th off. And the Bruins have had away games on the 23rd and on the 27th. They finally have a home game, yes, on the 23rd. But that means if you're traveling to go home for family, and some of these guys are going like across, out west or like south or wherever, you don't have a lot of time because you've traveled and you get home at like 3 a.m. on the 23rd, and then you have to be back early on the 26th because you're traveling the next day. And so my big thing with the league, which haven't taken it up with them, don't know why, I don't think I have that much power, is to say if a team is playing on the 23rd, I think they should have the 27th off, and vice versa.
Right.
If they're playing on the 27th, have the 23rd off. But the Bruins, once again, playing in both of those games. Anything else jump out at you?
Let's see. I think it'll be interesting to see Charlie Coyle with the Blue Jackets. This is a team that made some noise last season, and I know a number of fans were just kind of like hoping that his next venture, his next chapter would kind of jump off. So I feel like the Blue Jackets are going to be a fun fit because they're kind of one of those teams that can make it a little bit of a miserable physical experience. I guess everything in the physical form, I'm just like, all right, let's see how this newer Bruins team kind of competes against these. But it goes back to the Panthers, like how vicious, how annoying, how irritating are they going to be? And then not only playing into the storyline of Brad Marchand and obviously like the physicality he likes to impress upon his opponents, but like who on his former team is he going to try to get under their skin? Because you don't do it better than anyone that you formerly played with. We used to have that a lot back at the Lightning.
Yeah, I am not a betting person. I don't put money down on games ever, or maybe like once a year. But I will. It's probably going to be, I don't even know how to do the lingo, but I think it's a plus versus minus. Guys, don't ask me. But I think the odds are going to be in his favor to score against his former team.
Yeah.
And I can definitely see Brad Marchand trying to score against the Boston Bruins at the Garden. And if he does, I like the first time, after the second time or third time or years down the line, because he signed a multi-year contract, I think people chill out a little bit. But the first time, I think fans are going to go crazy for that. You mentioned when we were doing our team meeting, a little bit, we have a couple minutes just to talk about this, but what we can get out as fans watching the Bruins face teams that are cup contenders, and like, what was your notes on that? Like comparables of, do they have the speed, the size, or maybe that's a good measuring stick to take notes and be like, okay, this is, the Florida Panthers, they won, they're stacked, they're pretty much bringing most of the same guys back. This is how we compare against them. So I want you to pop off on that, but first I just want to say a lot of the times I have seen the Bruins during the regular season not play well against certain teams like Toronto in the regular season, and then they kill them in the playoffs, and vice versa. We were good against Florida in the regular season, and then they would beat us in the postseason. So not always a fair comparison, but go ahead with like what you're kind of going to be looking for.
Yeah, I always say that the postseason and regular season are two entirely different seasons. The gear just completely changes. But as for like some fun things to try to look at or gander for this new team is just versus the Sabres. A big thing for the Bruins last season was being a highly penalized team, constantly racking up those penalty minutes. Well, you got a Sabres team that has Rasmus Dahlin, that's one of the top guys for drawing penalties. So we can probably hope to see a little bit more discipline, or how well the Bruins can play physical as well as discipline versus the Sabres. It's not crediting the Sabres in any way. It's just saying that can be a test to see where this team starts to kind of clean some things up. And then for the Lightning, where Travis called me out, the Lightning has been notably a highly skilled team, but then when presented with a lot of physicality, they are pushed out of their game and they are forced into their opponent's game. So it would be interesting to see how the Bruins can kind of impose their will on a Tampa Bay Lightning team that's still pretty much going to be identified as a skilled team. They can be more physical, and see how that works in their favor, especially with the investment in the bottom six players. And then, power play, special teams as a whole, penalty kill. What's that going to look like versus a Golden Knights team that's now got Mitch Marner in the mix, and Eichel, who is just a complete orchestrator of making plays happen and just completely being relentless when it comes to power play opportunities as well. Abs was probably one of the favorite ones that I wanted to see. Okay, where are we at? It's still early. It's October, but this is an Avalanche team that has speed and skill and known to pin teams in their zone, and we saw the Bruins get pinned in their zone quite a bit, and we saw it happen when teams were climbing back into matchups and taking over the third period versus a Bruins team. So that's another test they can say, okay, how well can they kind of try to maintain? How can they not get stuck in their zone? How can they work against certain things that worked against them last year? I already talked about Utah and the soapbox that I had about JJ Peterka and how much I wanted to see him rocking some black and gold. Do we call it gold here?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But that is not the case. But a super young team. Dylan Guenther is entirely hard to keep off any sort of score sheet. Then you got Peterka, who's relentless when it comes to third, fourth attempts and chances to make sure that scoring happens and works in their favor. Mikhail Sergachev, who I think is just a very formidable defenseman, fits very well over there. They've got a fourth line that's going to really bring the test to the Bruins. So we'll see how So it can really go toe-to-toe back to that bottom 6 conversation, and then the Panthers, what the physicality is going to look like there. Islanders I have circled because they just got faster now that they have Jonathan Drouin on that top line with Horvat, Palmieri. Then you've got Duclair if he's coming back from his mental health journey. Barzal, who is known to just be able to work in tight spaces. So there's going to be a real test to how speed is going to attack this team and how they're going to be able to slow down their opponent and kind of have that hybrid system and management being just as offensively stout as they are looking to be defensively. So those are the ones that I had circled.
All right. Listen, we're going to go to break, but first, can you please clarify what is this toilet paper story?
Oh my gosh, because I said that the Lightning can be known to be more skilled and versus physical because they changed a little bit in their defensive structure. And then Travis goes, so you're saying your old team is like Charmin toilet paper? And I was like dead silent. My face said it all because I was like, I can't say anything. I will not speak to this any further. Like, don't put words in my mouth. But I mean, he kept going and we went to break after that. So I didn't even get a chance to defend myself, but I don't even know how to start. So.
Well, we're going to clip it and try to make it go viral just to embarrass you even further,
Thank
okay?
you so
We're going to
much.
clip that. All right, Kasey, great insight there. This Bruins schedule, it's out all over the internet. You guys can see it, NESNBruins.com, your app, circle the dates. There are some good, very important ones that are coming up. For the 25th, 26th season, we have Mailbag coming up, which is when we address your comments, your concerns, whatever they are. That's coming up next on Hockey Hub. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Hockey Hub. Sophia and Kasey here with you. We are finally getting to something we've been trying to do for a couple weeks, but we always talk too much, so we wouldn't have time for it. So some of these have been like sitting in the dust in the roster, but this is the Mailbag, where you guys will leave, and feel free to do that. Leave your comments, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you're watching this, YouTube, and we will try to get to them, okay? Case, we're going to start. I'm just picking one. Are you cool with that?
Yep, go for it.
I'm just going to start with the big one, the captaincy. So this is at Mike Cho on Bruins Next Captain. He says, who do you think deserves a C on this team? Pasta or McAvoy? These two are the only guys I think who might deserve it. So it's a loaded question for me because of the fact that, like, since those guys are now the longest tenured Bruins, which is crazy to say, it seems obvious that it would be either of those guys. I understand how that is really important, and I also understand how bringing in someone new and then just naming them captain for whatever reason would probably maybe not be good for the culture. But just because you're next in line doesn't mean you're right in line or the best one in line in terms of tenure. They have the leadership, both of them have the leadership skills, and both of them really took a step up. I saw Pasta take, I wouldn't say a bigger step. I really don't want that to go on air, but I saw more of Pasta because I was off for the season, and when I came back, Charlie McAvoy was injured, and so I didn't really get to see much of him in the room. But in the locker closeout, I was like, whoa, like this is a different McAvoy than I have seen. Or maybe, you know, maybe if he was watching this, he'd be like, that's not really fair. I've always been like that. You just haven't seen it. Right. Maybe he decided, like, now I'm taking that role with the media, and maybe he wasn't stepping on Marchand and Bergeron's toes. Like, he knows that those are the guys that do it. So, again, not saying they didn't have it, that they finally got it, but both of them made it their responsibility to be like, I'm going to lead, I'm going to take ownership, I'm going to talk to the media for as long as they need, I'm going to answer all the questions, I'm going to defend my team, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to set the narrative. So I like either of them as the next captain, but I'm just going to point out what I think we've already pointed out on the show. Marco Sturm saying, yeah, they seem great, and I know how skilled they are, but let me get to know this team and let me decide, which I like because we talk a lot about internal competition in terms of roles. I don't think Pasta and McAvoy need to duke it out. You know, I know whoever gets the ultimate C, it's going to be like a 1A, 1B like it has been with Bergeron and Chara, with Marchand and Bergeron. It's going to be, one guy's going to wear the C, but it's going to be dual leadership and then multi-layered. But I like that Marco Sturm is taking his time with it and letting things play out. So anyway, long-ass winded answer. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I mean, because you're the one who has the insight on it. But like you said, I mean, his leader has to fit the bill of what he's now bringing into Bruins culture. So I think it is best. Slightly embarrassed to say this, at Daddy06416 on Matthew Poitras. If Poitras can figure out the wing, it would be huge for him in the organization. I chose this, and I'll try to make it as quick as possible. We had Ty Anderson on, was it just last week?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, days and dates. He talked about getting Poitras back to that center position, and while he made a great case for it, I agree with the fact that if Poitras can figure out wing, it'll help solidify his future a little bit more, because you've got a Fraser Minten who is kind of looked at and projected to be that center. He talked about Poitras kind of getting pushed around on the ice a little bit last year, and then of course Poitras' size. So in Minten, you have a guy who's got a bigger stature, who has the ability to respond physically a little bit easier, has more defensive skill set to his arsenal as well. So I feel like what they have projected, Jeannot, Minten, and then Poitras on the outside, Jeannot making space, Minten being that two-way guy, and then Poitras just kind of really being a facilitator or a scorer in a sense, whatever works best. I think it'll help him kind of really lock in confidently to this lineup and this roster.
Girl, I'm sorry, I talked too much, and we only gave you pretty much a minute to answer that. So
I think I got through it though.
No, what we're gonna do, just to be safe, because I have no idea what's going on with the timing. I'm sorry, Brendan, I misunderstood things. We're gonna send it to break. And we're gonna come back and wrap up the thought and wrap up the show. Is that cool, Kasey?
That works.
Okay, we're sending it to break, guys. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. We're going to wrap up the mailbag. I made Kasey like speed talk because I talked so much about something we already talked about, the captaincy. But I want to comment on your thoughts on, who is this? Daddy-O and Matt Poitras. Yeah, I mean, anytime you get a guy that can do both, they say, get you a guy that can be both in dating, but also in hockey. Like, if he could play center and wing, then yes, absolutely. Like, I don't want to say it goes without saying, but yeah, he of course is going to be more valuable to the team. I do agree with Ty. I think his reads when we did have that little sample size of him, very, very cerebral, very good at reading plays and being able to get the puck over. So I think center is where he's going to be best. But yes, if you can have him reliable on the wing, bonus. Okay. You have 15 seconds. Sorry, Kasey. Here I go off again.
No.
I guess we'll just wrap.
I think you tied the bow on it, honestly. Okay. I say Poitras, if you can figure out wing, do it. I agree with Daddy-O, and we already know I'm like too high on Minten, so.
All right. Well, listen, we'll do more mailbag on the next show on Wednesday, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week. We'll see you Wednesday at 10 a.m.